what RPA is and how they worked with Nielsen to achieve incredible productivity gains. The key premise here, and it's a similar analogy when people want to go to the cloud like Viacom, CBS, and get rid of all the hassles of maintaining servers. There's so many repetitive tasks that don't get done correctly that expose your vulnerabilities, and the great power of UiPath is its ability to free up your staff to focus on more strategic issues. Excited to have you back, Mark.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ron. Great to be here. And I just want to do a quick mic check and a video check. Are we good?
We are all good.
Excellent. So I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you again, and especially with this esteemed group in the media and entertainment space. So I'll touch on remote process automation as well as artificial intelligence, and a little bit about why these two worlds are coming together and the profound effect that they're going to have in terms of changing the way that we do work as humans and the way that robots actually do work on our behalf, to be able to get work done. So, just to start with, kind of these predictions, I'm going to bring mine into a little bit of present day type of scenario. What are the trends that are actually causing companies to embrace automation as a key strategy? And it's really a couple of different, angles here. One is access to resources who have knowledge about the different types of tasks that need to occur within the enterprise. I'll give you a real good example here that I'll talk throughout this story, as well as when we land on Nielsen, I'll talk about some of the profound impact that automation has had on their world, their enterprise, in terms of real dollars and cents savings. But think about media buy and the media buy process and the insertion orders. There's a tremendous amount of invoices that come in as a result of the media buy process that contain a tremendous amount of information about what type of media buy event occurred, what was that media buy associated with respect to campaigns, how did those campaigns translate into events, into impressions, and then tracking all that activity across different types of channels is actually quite a lot of work. And today there's organizations that largely rely on people to go and track where that activity has been performed and relate it back to what sits on an invoice to be able to get payment for an actual insertion order. So having people perform this type of task requires a lot of human effort, right? And so we think that this is a really good example where a robot can actually start to extract data from an invoice and be able to compare that data with a variety of different backend systems that contain the ground truth or the source of information relative to where these insertion orders actually made their way. That's really part of digital transformation, right? Taking the tasks that people are doing and now using the benefits of automation, and in our case, robots, software robots that are performing those tasks on behalf of the human, so that the human doesn't have to do those tasks manually themselves every single day. And so we think automation is kind of the new frontier, and it's really, companies that are using this capability as a strategic advantage now are starting to realize that this is a capability that they can use for competitive differentiation. The other factor that's causing a huge change in adopting automation is that we're able to democratize automation. So if you think historically, making changes to back-end systems that are in your environment often required a tremendous amount of technical effort, technical design, technical architecture, teams that come together to figure out all the interfaces and how data is going to move from here to there and all the transformations and conversions and all of that, right? The benefit of automation and the UiPath story here is that we can actually automate at the UI level. So the integration actually occurs the same way that humans may be moving data from one system to another system manually. A robot can perform those same tasks. So we preserve all the same rules, the business process to a certain degree, the integrity of how the data flows between those applications, but we automate it. And so that's huge. And that automation is made possible now, rather than having a core developer who needs to know in detail Java or C# or Python, right, at the programming level. We can enable a business user who's been skilled on how to use our Studio product to basically build that automation through a drag and drop type of interface. And so that's also enabling a huge transition towards automation. And so the reason why this is important, if you think just 10 years ago, right, or even back further, the number of applications that we had to work with as humans on a daily basis were fairly limited, right? Maybe it was SAP or Oracle, or we're working with our Microsoft Office suite, But we now have a proliferation of software as a result of software as a service and a variety of cloud-based types of applications. I'm sitting here with a pretty thin desktop right now, and I've got 12 different applications open across 3 different screens that I'm managing my day-to-day tasks. And again, it's kind of a light footprint. Throughout the day, I'll probably burst up to about 20 different applications where I'm working across different types of enterprise apps that allow me to be able to change what I'm doing from a customer interaction standpoint, if I'm actually building an application or workflow. So that's just a simple example of how this proliferation occurred. And I think the best example of this is how many monitors are on your desktop today, right? And so the reason for this is that it causes friction for employees, right? So me having to go into Salesforce.com and update a record, and then have to go into another backend system to update maybe a sales forecast if I'm somewhat involved with customer activity. That takes time, it takes effort. I've got to understand how those different systems work. That's a prime example of where automation can change, right? What I have to do as a human, and I can basically give those tasks to a robot to perform on my behalf. So back to insertion orders, rather than me as an individual actually manually looking at an invoice of insertion orders and triaging, did this go to the right campaign? Is it the right media channels that it was delivered to? Did we get the right number of impressions? Did we get the response rate that we want? A robot can actually perform those tasks on my behalf. So automation is taking off the table the manual tasks that are time consuming, that are just simply repetitive, right? They're rules based, and I just keep doing them day in and day out. I want to actually hand that over to a robot to be able to perform, so that really I can focus on higher value types of services or interactions that occur either with my customers or within the enterprise from a mid office or back office perspective, as I work with different departments like legal or with finance, et cetera. And so automation is really key, right? Because there's an unlimited number of use cases. A robot, you're working at the UI level, can effectively interact with those same applications that I do all day long, but it can do it 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so the productivity factor increases significantly, and the ability to apply this automation capability really isn't targeted to one area, right? So I can cut across processes that exist in the front office that are customer facing, right? Actually talking with the new customer about a media campaign, and then even from mid office to back office, executing that campaign operationally internally. Robots can perform a lot of those tasks. The other key thing that we see now too is that COVID, right, and the fact that we're all working from home, we have to bring work home with us, which represents a problem for many other customers, right, in different domains. Just setting aside media and entertainment for a moment, if you go into a heavily regulated industry like banking and finance, you can't take a lot of that data home. It's got PII information in it. It's very sensitive data. So how do you actually do work when you're working from home? Robots are a really good mechanism to be able to perform that same work, keep it in the same data center where, say, documents exist or where the data is actually working with, so that we can effectively then get this digital transformation and move now work back to a robot that we would effectively be doing at home today. So COVID's kind of allowing us to be able to actually accelerate digital transformation, because organizations now are thinking, how do we actually solve for this new dynamic of working from home using Zoom or another delivery mechanism to interact? It represents a whole new different way of working. So when we think about the evolution, right, if you're familiar with robotic process automation, it's been around for some time, right? UiPath as a company has been around for many years, and we have customers that have used our platform to be able to automate these rules-based tasks that I talked about. What's happening is with the integration of RPA with artificial intelligence, we can now automate a whole new set of tasks that previously we weren't able to. So in the example that I mentioned before, looking at an insertion order, where was a media buy, what were the campaigns, where did that order actually go, how did it manifest across an execution campaign, and how to resolve that back to the plan that I have for that campaign. We can now introduce artificial intelligence into the equation, so that rather than just handling rules-based tasks that are more if-then related or case-oriented. Now we can actually introduce machine learning and bring the benefit of probabilistic modeling and probabilistic outcomes. We can score a campaign, we can score the effectiveness of various types of channels where that campaign's been executed, and we can deliver analytics much more rapidly as a result by using these machine learning capabilities. And you can take that from things like scoring or forecasting and predictions all the way up to using machine learning for object detection and image recognition, some of the other demonstrations that you saw earlier today, where we can predict who are the actors within a particular video or movie, or what type of objects are there. The same type of capability can be used here. So the difference is a robot can actually perform the same task of going in and validating content within a video or a media type of asset, and then only engage a human when the uncertainty is relatively low or questionable. And we use a similar type of concept of a confidence score, right? The model returns a confidence score and tells me, the model is either absolutely certain that an object is a person next to a car on a street, or it's uncertain. It might be a person on a bicycle that's actually on the side of the street, right? With robots working with machine learning and with humans, we see that as an ensemble of all three capabilities coming together. So when the robot's uncertain based upon what the model is returning, a human can basically validate what the model sees or predicts that it sees, and then we can actually take that human data and feed it back into the model to make it more performant. And so I'm kind of unpacking a little bit more of my presentation here, but that's kind of the vision, right? That RPA and now AI are going to enable this whole new set of automation capabilities that previously we weren't able to do. So just looking at kind of the four pillars of a fully automated enterprise, and that's really what this capability is designed to do, right? RPA and AI can be used across all facets of the enterprise, from back office to mid office to front office. We can assign that work to robots that humans do today. We can give a robot to every person in the company, because no matter what role somebody has, they're probably performing some tasks that a robot is capable of being able to perform, so that more time can be spent on, again, taking care of customers, or creating a better product or a better service. We have the ability to democratize the development of these automations, and even democratize artificial intelligence. So I'll show you as a quick example how you can easily deploy a machine learning model on our platform and then expose it and make it available to a robot to be able to interact with, without having to have experience in data science and in building models and validating models, as a typical data science would. So the benefits here really are that, and really focus on the right side of the screen, right? The benefits of automation is that employees now get to do more valuable work rather than swiveling from one screen to another screen and moving data from here to there. I can really focus on more important things like what type of new products do I want to deliver to customers, or having better interactions and conversations with customers that I haven't had time to do previously, right? The other thing is that employees are empowered to automate tasks. So that citizen development concept that we have on the platform that makes it easy for a business user who's been skilled on our platform can easily take a new workflow and implement it without having to get into elaborate coding types of capabilities. And so that's key as well. And that really means that anybody in the enterprise can become a developer, right? Because now it's really more about dragging and dropping something into a workflow canvas, and having a robot execute that, as opposed to going in and coding some Python code or writing some C# or Java or some other type of language within the environment. So AI is really going to change things going forward. We already know this, right? With object detection, with now autonomous driving vehicles that have multi-sensor arrays and the ability to be able to actually see what's happening on the road and actually control the vehicle. AI has had a profound effect in many industries, and will continue to have more profound effect in all, including media. We already know that too, where we can automatically predict and identify actors or key people within a video segment, as an example. But across the enterprise, right, we can now take this machine learning and deep learning capability and now apply it to back office and mid office types of functions. And so This new world of automating processes can now deal with not just rule-based things, right? If, then, else, or in this case, do this. Here we can actually do things like account for uncertainty. We can score how well is a media campaign running, and if we discover that the score that's returned by the model is below the goal that we set, we can actually notify that there's a change that we want to make to that media campaign while the campaign is running, so that we can ensure that the media dollars are returning the ROI that we wanted from that campaign. Additionally, we can deal with things that are highly variable. So a good example of that is pre-COVID-19, there was a completely different world that we existed in terms of how the internet was used. Mostly we were using the internet in a corporate context when we go to the office. Now the internet is used in a fundamentally different way because our office is now at home, and rather than doing the things that we normally do, like travel around the world and spend time outside, we're spending more time in a good way, consuming more media on our favorite channels. So dealing with that variability also is really important. You can use machine learning to do forecasting and predicting what will change based upon new events that occur within the environment, right? The other thing too is that we have now the capability with AI to deal with things like unstructured data and being able to read data within a document, extract that data from a document, and be able to do something with that data. That could be something like emails that are coming in to be able to deal with a customer complaint, classifying that email to know what the complaint is related to. Is it a consumer that's watching a video and they're having some streaming challenges and the delivery of the quality of the service is low? How do we predict that that's in fact what the request is and the intent of the individual making the email to us? And then how do we route that to the appropriate process or robot to be able to resolve the issue quickly? So that's another really good example of how we can leverage these capabilities. Additionally, we have process understanding. So the key question is, where do you begin in an organization to introduce this type of automation? You can use process understanding tools to actually discover where do things take longer today because of a heavily manual process with lots of movement of data back and forth between systems and latency. We have process understanding tools that will allow you to discover where these process areas are that take longer and require more human effort, so that you can target those as higher process areas to automate. And then as you implement your automations, you can monitor the effectiveness of that automation and then act on the changes, right? What do I need to change to fine tune something so that I can take the amount of time it requires me to come up with a media buy or a media strategy to the time that I can actually execute it and get a response back. So you can use process mining tools on an automation platform from UiPath to be able to quickly capture information from your backend systems, visualize the process, determine where are the areas that you can streamline that process through automation and incorporate machine learning. And then once you deploy that automation in that robot, monitor how well is it running? Is it achieving the objective that you set out to achieve? So I'm going to fast forward a little bit because I'm also too time constrained here a bit. But there's two sides to this, right? There's data that comes from backend systems that you can then mine your SAP or your Oracle environment or from SFDC. And then there's another tool that we have that you can use to actually monitor what happens on the desktop. And independent of the backend systems, what is somebody doing screen to screen that then allows us to automatically then build a workflow from that screen activity and allow us to more rapidly take those events that occur on the desktop and automate those without having the dependency so much on the backend data as well. So that's kind of a combination of a couple different things from what processes do I automate and how do I actually automate them. What we often see is that documents are still in existence, right? Going back to those insertion orders, we have a customer that receives many of these insertion orders a day and invoices for them, and manually have to swivel, from one screen to another screen, looking at an electronic version of that document and inputting data into a backend system that actually is part of the day sales outstanding process. So we can use document understanding to have a robot intelligently extract the data from the document and then automatically move it into the backend system as needed. The key here is it's not just OCR. So you may be familiar with OCR types of tools that will just take a document, digitize it, and extract the data. Here we're actually using machine learning to intelligently be aware of what type of data is on the document. So an insertion order looks like an invoice. We can know, who are the parties of that insertion order, what was the campaign that insertion order was being designed for, the media channels that it was to be delivered over, and the impressions that were realized across different types of channels. And so there's a lot more intelligence that we have now beyond just OCR to be able to take data out of these documents and leverage them effectively. So again, this can be structured or semi-structured as an invoice, or it can be an unstructured document, which is maybe the media buy contract itself that has terms and conditions in it and provisions. We have capabilities to also have a robot using machine learning to intelligently extract that data from that document and make it available to various backend systems. And then there's a common framework that we use so that as you tackle a number of different documents in the enterprise, you can have a standardized way to be able to digitize them, classify the documents, extract the data from the documents, and then export it to a backend system. Meanwhile, use the benefit of a human and human in the loop to be able to take human inputs and retrain that machine learning model so that it becomes more performant over time. And so the other thing that we were seeing is, AI has been around for a number of years, and so there's been a gap. How long does it take for organizations to actually benefit from AI? Has been a function of getting data scientists to build models, figuring out the right infrastructure like Kubernetes and containers to be able to scale those models, providing the right GPU infrastructure, for example, to train the models on a large corpus of data. All of that takes a tremendous amount of time and expertise and VMs with GPU type of capability. So often what we see is that many of these projects haven't moved into production. And so, we are kind of solving that by creating a tool that we call AI Fabric, which makes it easy for somebody who's maybe not even a data scientist to quickly identify a model that they want to use. We have out-of-the-box models that ship for image classification or text extraction or translating text from one language to another language, and then effectively deploy that model on the platform, provide a data labeling type of capability similar to what you saw earlier today to label data to train the model, and then even provide the ability to be able to manage that model over time. And so it's kind of a drag and drop nature of machine learning. It's the same type of concept that we've taken to automating workflows, which is drag and drop, very easy for a business user or somebody who's been trained on the platform without coding skills to basically do what a data scientist does to train a model with labeled data and then deploy that model on an infrastructure that uses Kubernetes on the back end without, again, having to worry about all the intricacies with respect to actually how to deploy the model effectively. And so, as mentioned, a lot of out-of-the-box type of capabilities, right? The key here is that we're making it easy so that you don't necessarily have to have the data science background. So you can use these out-of-the-box models, quickly and incorporate them into the workflow. So you can effectively do things like invoice extraction, like the media insertion order invoices, and other types of activities as well. And so I'm just going to end here on the Nielsen case study. This is another example of a customer that we've worked with in the media industry. They've actually embraced automation a couple years back, and they've deployed this now capability across 20 different organizational units in more than 40 different countries. They've targeted a number of different areas. As you know, they manage a large volume of data that's used across the media industry overall. And to date, they've already saved over 350,000 hours of time across the enterprise in the 18-month period, and they're on target this year to save over 500,000 hours. And so if we just equate an hour to a dollar amount, let's just pick $50, that has a potential of saving $25 million worth of costs today, not to mention the fact that they're actually providing a better experience for their customers who call in with different types of questions. Those get routed more efficiently. Robots can make decisions around how to triage calls or redirect them to somebody who can get the customer the type of answer that they need to get something done.